Welcome to the Panic Room, where we talk about all things panic-inducing. I am the Queen of Panic. Warning, some episodes may contain content that may be disturbing to others. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let the games begin.
It was requested that I tell this story when I briefly mentioned the event in a Glitch of the Matrix thread, so here goes. When I was 15, I was in a really bad mental headspace. With that being said, I was depressed, lonely, and desperate for someone's attention. So against better judgment, I made an account on Plenty of Fish. I understand that I put myself in a dangerous position for predators, but I also understand that any man who I told my age to should have just reported my account and not spoken to me. But after swiping left and right for about an hour, I met a man I will call Red. Red was 26, a father of 2 beautiful toddlers, and a Puerto Rican native who recently moved to Florida. He spoke a fair bit of English and had this charm to him when he spoke. When I told him my age, it's scary to think now about how he was okay with it. He simply told me that we wouldn't have sexual relations and that our interactions would be innocent. We talked for a few months before even talking about meeting up. When I talked to Red, I felt happy, whole, like I finally had someone. The first few times we met up, it was fine. We went to the outlets, Disney Springs, the movies. He was a perfect gentleman, held my hand, opened doors for me, and kept his hands off me. We kissed a bit, but nothing too intense. About 6 months into our relationship, I turned 16, and I invited him to my house, through means of sneaking in my window, of course, and he agreed. We were just hanging out, watching a movie, when he kissed me in a way he had never before. In a way I'd never been kissed before. It was surprising, and without having to be said, overwhelming. I got scared. It finally hit me that this was a full-grown man and I was a child. I got off my bed and told him he had to leave. His face contorted into anger and he stepped towards me, trying to convince me through gritted teeth not to make him leave. He reached out to grab my shoulders, and out of instinct, I shoved his chest to make him back off, only for a harsh shove to be returned. A sharp, hot pain suddenly overwhelmed me, spreading from the back of my head and down the rest of my body. Then, everything went black. Next thing I knew, I was hearing a blood-curdling scream, hazed out and too weak to open my eyes fully. I just barely made out my mom. I felt wetness on my head, and my body felt so cold now. It was just as I gathered that something was wrong that I lost consciousness again. The following time I had awoke in a hospital bed. My head was pounding and aching in the back. I reached up hazily to feel where the pain was coming from, and my fingertips grazed a narrow row of staples on a bald patch on the left back of my head, making me wince. Things went by fast from that point on, a doctor and my mother and father explaining that I must have slipped and hit my head on the windowsill, being that's where the first impact was made, before falling the rest of the way to my tile floor. My mom came in my room to wake me for school and found me laying in a pool of my own blood. She thought I was dead because of my breathing was so faint. But they had no idea why I slipped. And it was too embarrassing, and I was too ashamed of myself to tell anyone. I didn't think that I deserved justice for what Red did to me. Later on, I found my obstacles for the injury, hearing loss in my right ear, as well as the inability to retain old memories. This faint and a new flash of memories from my childhood are the last things that I remember before this incident. Though I was saddened by this, I was happy to be alive and to never see Red again. Now being 18, a few months ago I signed up for Plenty of Fish. I kept my wariness this time though and didn't go on any dates. I looked out for warning signs and upon the first one blocked just about everyone. Then, one day, I received a message, and it was from Red. I had blocked him on any other platforms, including his number. It said, "Hey, how have you been?" I didn't respond, but I looked at his profile. It still said 26. Odd. So perhaps I didn't know his real age. Perhaps I didn't know this man at all. being that he thought he must have killed me and selfishly ran off without even attempting to see if I was alive. So, Red, you can keep your charm. All I ask is that we never meet again. This happened in 2011. I just got out of a rough relationship a few months prior to this happening. My friends encouraged me to try dating again, so I caved and made a profile on the website Plenty of Fish. I was surprised with how many messages I'd received within the first few hours. Most were just people saying hi or asking to hook up. I wasn't looking for a hookup, so I ignored those messages. After about a week, a guy roughly an hour away from me messaged me. He was cute, so I messaged him back. The conversation was pretty casual at first. He asked if I'd like to go for a coffee sometime. Not thinking anything of it, I said sure. This is where it started to get weird. He started to get pushy and asked when we could grab coffee. I told him I didn't have my own car, so I'd have to borrow my mom's car to meet him up. He offered to pick me up, but I wasn't comfortable with the idea. The next message made my blood run cold. It read,
I'm sure your hometown isn't that big. If I knocked on a few doors, someone would be able to tell me where you lived.
Are you crazy? I replied. I'm sorry, but that's kind of creepy. This just pissed him off. He messaged me multiple times after this. They said,
You know, I have a gun, right? I could shoot you and make you disappear. No one would look for you. You're nothing but a dirty tramp. I could kill you. I'll throw you down a well and no one will ever find you.
I was really scared at this point, so I asked him to please leave me alone. He replied with the following.
I know where your hometown is. It's not really a big town. I can and will find you.
At this point, I'd had enough, and I blocked him. I reported his account to Plenty of Fish and deleted my account. I was really on edge for the next few weeks after the fact. I was afraid he was actually going to come looking for me. So, to the creepy guy who threatened to kill me on Plenty of Fish, let's not meet ever. This happened 3 summers ago, but I remember the main events. To preface this, I have been on a shocking amount of dates and put myself in many foolish situations in the past. I am a female and I was 25 at the time of the matter. It started on the Plenty of Fish app. I came across a cute guy. He was my type physically, kind of nerdy looking. On his profile, he had a very adventurous photos of him hiking and traveling. He seemed really exciting to get to know. Once he saw I looked at his profile, he sent me a message. We flirted a bit back and forth and exchanged numbers even though he lived about an hour away. He said on the app that he's never been to my city and didn't plan on it, so we probably wouldn't meet. I respected his honesty. I don't like wasting my time. One day shortly after meeting him online, he texted me randomly saying he's in my town on some work thing and invited me to a bar he was at. I decided to meet since I was already in the area. He said he would pick me up. I was dumb and agreed, even though it was only just 4 blocks away. It took him way longer than it should have to get me, and I honestly don't think he was actually ever at the bar. Once in Plenty of Fish's date's car, I noticed it was just a rental, and that it seemed like he had just gotten his license because he was a terrible driver. After driving in circles, he told me to pick a place, but not in the area because parking is impossible. I picked a place 15 minutes away by car, with lots of parking, but also a busy place since I was with a stranger. Once there, he started pressuring me to drink. He insisted. I'm not a huge drinker, but I enjoy pub-style bars. I caved and had a drink, and was again pressured to have another one. He was very pushy and seemed really irritated that I wasn't going for it. Usually, I'd end a date pretty quickly if I'd been mistreated, but he became charming enough to keep me there at least until we were done on our date. I saw an old acquaintance at the bar and wanted my date to know I knew him. In my head, I think I wanted my date to know that someone could identify him. I'm not a paranoid person, but I think my subconscious was on alert. After an hour talking in the bar, I tell him I'm ready to head out. He insisted we go across the road to get coffee. At the time, it seemed strange to me. Neither of us had much to drink and didn't need to sober up. Coffee seems like an odd choice otherwise. I entertained it. Once there, we sipped our drinks. He told me he rented a beautiful Airbnb in the neighborhood nearby. That is more out of the city/country. He told me he had it all to himself and invited me going on about how nice it is. I kept politely saying no and throwing around different excuses which he would counter with a reason for me to come. With no intention of going, I agreed, but only if he would drive me home to get overnight things. I felt he wasn't going to let me say no. He seemed happy with that answer, so we headed out. While driving in the direction of my place, he said that instead he would stop at a 7-Eleven and grab me travel-sized toiletries so I wouldn't need anything. I felt panicked because my plan was to not go with him. Something about him was off, and I felt stupid for even getting back in his car to begin with. He turned his car, and we were then headed towards the more country area. Literally, there aren't any 7-Elevens or open stores in the middle of nowhere. Then I mentioned that I'm actually thinking I'd prefer not to stay with him and asked to be brought home. He then said something that made me completely nervous to be around him for much longer. He said he's sharing the Airbnb with the owners and said they are really fun and sweet and that they drink and play games together. He originally said he had it all to himself. I knew I didn't want to make it obvious that I was catching on to his lie, so I went along with it and said, "Oh, I have to wear my cute fluffy overnight PJs instead of my date dress because I'll be way more comfy." Then I spewed off a few other things. I mentioned that I need my medication and absolutely cannot miss a dose. Surprisingly, he turned around, and as we drove back into the city, I felt a bit more calm, but at that point, not safe. Finally, we got close to my place. I had no intention of letting him close enough to know where I live. He was mentioning that he was going to come up to my apartment once we got there, and that is just a huge hell no. I don't know what I would do, but I looked for any opportunity to get out of the situation, knowing he could turn around and take me somewhere private in the matter of 15 minutes if he wanted. We got to a stop sign where people were crossing. Thank God. I quickly but calmly got out and said, "Hey, I think I have a headache. I'll text you." I closed the car door and went through a public park, which was beside the building that his car wouldn't be able to drive into. I looked back to make sure he wasn't getting out of his car/following, and I could see him staring at me. He was so furious, and I have chills thinking about it. Within the hour, he had blocked me on Plenty of Fish. Looking back, I think he possibly wanted to get me a coffee to possibly put something in it. I think he told me on POF that we wouldn't ever meet to maybe cover his ass. And I know he did not have good intentions with me. Since then, I have met my fiancé on POF and was super careful about dating up until then, making sure the first few dates are very public, and to arrange my own transportation. POF creep. Let's not meet again.
So this is currently happening to me. It's been going on for close to 3 weeks now. I decided to make a profile on Plenty of Fish because I've been single for 8 months now. And I have friends who have had success on there before. I decided why not. About a month later, I got a message from a very attractive girl, and we actually got along very well. We talked for a few weeks until we decided to exchange our kicks. That's where everything took a turn for the worse. Within only 4 messages, she revealed to me that her pictures were fake, and proceeded to send me of a new one saying,
"This is me. I swear I'm not fake. I promise."
The picture was of a girl I knew looked too good to be true, so being a huge fan of the show Catfish, I decided to reverse image search the picture. Sure enough, I found the real girl. I told her about what I found, so she did it again, sent a new picture, reverse image searched it, same thing, not her. At this point I got fed up and told her to never talk to me again. She became extremely angry. She started calling me every name in the book, telling me she's a stripper and would pleasure me anytime I wanted, and that I lost out. I started getting messages from new accounts on both POF and Kick, all claiming to be her friend or someone who works with her. They all talked the same way she did, and I just knew deep down they were all her. The friends started sending me messages threatening me, saying,
I know where you live. Her dad will beat the shit out of you.
And the one that made my heart drop was,
I know you live in Pine Ridge.
that's my neighborhood. It went on every single day. I would get up to 30 kicks a day from her, never replying. I got sick of it, so I made my Instagram private, deleted Facebook, took down my profile, and made a new kick. About 5 days went by, and the worst thing happened 4 days ago. I got a new message on my new kick. It was a picture from a username called
Killer 2 coming for you.
When I opened it, I almost pissed myself. It was my house, from across the street. I could see the window to my room with the lights on. I called the cops, and long story short, they told me they can't do anything because she hasn't physically harmed me yet. Thanks. That really helps me a lot. I've been sleeping with the knife under my pillow ever since. Thank God she hasn't done anything yet. But today, just a few hours ago, I got a new message on Kik from a friend of hers. I know it's her, but she just flipped, swearing hardcore.
Fuck you, fuck your dad, fuck your mom. You're a fucking loser.
Me being curious, I decided to sign into my old Kik, and sure enough, 10 new messages. They were all saying how she loved me, but now she's pregnant and has a boyfriend, but that she still loves me and wants to raise the baby boy with me. Sure enough, she sent a new picture of a pregnant girl with a caption at the bottom.
Proof that I'm pregnant?
I definitely saved it and just reversed image searched it again. Sure enough, there's thousands of sites with that picture. Every day I'm living in fear, waiting for a new message. I'm gonna make a new Kik tonight, but she seems to find them easily. I'll keep you guys updated on this. Every new message she sent me, I took screenshots of, so I can definitely verify it's true. I'm sorry this is so long and thank you for sticking with me. Please wish me luck. Update. The day after I have posted this, I definitely deleted my Kik and every other social media but my Facebook, because that's the only way most of my family can get a hold of me. Though I thought I did my best to make sure everything I wrote, or liked, or posted was private. Today I got a new message on the message requests in the inbox from a person I definitely won't identify, since this is still an ongoing investigation. It said,
My sister loved you and you broke her heart, and we will come kill you.
This was this morning, and I have called the cops since. They're finally starting to take me a bit more seriously, as they have at least a name and a message now, and say they will do their best. So let's hope.
This story goes back many years ago after a breakup, a little time to myself, and I just wanted to meet new people, but not necessarily to hook up, just dates. Here enters JB. Seems nice enough. Met at the nearest city. Had a nice date, and I said goodbye. We make some more arrangements to hang out, and eventually we end up back at his flat in an area of the city I know quite well as I lived there as a student. So, I felt confident and comfortable as his flatmates would also be home. I wouldn't be completely alone with him. We're sitting downstairs watching The American Office when his flatmates come home, and they were making their meals, and he suggested finishing watching an episode upstairs before I left for the bus. Well, he has the smallest room, with a single bed and no chairs. He lays down on the bed and I sit on the end. He encourages me to move up, and I awkwardly do. He says he can't see, so lie down. So I lied down on the bed, uncomfortably, but tried to think logically. And we hadn't even kissed yet, so what could happen? I wish I had just left. Without even a cuddle or anything, this guy just grabs my arm and tries to shove my hand down his shorts. Nope. Luckily, I was kind of clutching my handbag, close-ish, in the other hand. And I just flipped out of the bed into a standing position, thrown my bag over me, and ran downstairs with him saying,
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
He had no shoes on, and he didn't know I used to live in the city, because I was out of there and down a different street we had come down earlier. I was freaking out at the bus stop, on the phone trying to get a lift home before he finds me. I make it home, and no, I never saw him again. But that's not the last time I heard from him. He went mighty quiet after I ignored his messages begging to meet up with him. I spied on his Facebook when he did go quiet, just curious. And he had just moved in with his girlfriend. I mean, this was mere weeks after the event. Who moves in with someone that quick? Or was he already seeing her? I will never know. Q 6 months, and nothing. I hadn't been on POF for a while after that. And then, January, I get a message. It's him. He's split with her and he wants to meet, chat, and have a coffee. Being a bit lonely, and him kinda, it was nothing attitude. I thought about it. I agreed and said only if we'd meet in public. He agrees. We make plans, and on the evening I'm leaving work, he says he can't make it, and I should just meet him at his place. Nope. I decline and go home. This goes on for a further 6 months, and him badgering/guilting me into saying I'd meet him at a coffee place, and him changing the plans last minute to me canceling. This sounds like nothing until June, when I had been messaging my friend, M, a male, who lived in the next town over. M had a psycho ex-girlfriend that he told me all about, and M had a very normal name but spelt very unusual way. So, one evening I'm chilling at home and I get a WhatsApp from a number I don't recognize, and it's mentioned M, and the way his name is spelt. I obviously freak and tell M I think his crazy ex, he didn't have a Facebook and moved away from his family, as a partial reason to get away from her, had messaged me. Unfortunately, I have forgotten what the threatening message was, just that I was freaked out enough to ask, "Who is this?" And I get a message.
You know. M knows.
So M freaks out, and I kept getting calls from this number into the early hours, and the caller kept hanging when I answered. I suffered from anxiety at the time, and the next morning I was a wreck. I went to work and got another spat of random calls. Later that night, I told my cousin everything, and she calls from her phone. Guess whose voicemail she got? Yes, JB. She leaves a message saying not to contact me again and that the police will be involved. I check his Facebook later, and he's moving back to his home country. I hopefully will never meet him again. Probably not the most scary or creepy encounter, but it was playing on my mind recently.
I had just moved to Arizona from Texas. While attending college for welding and custom fabrication, I didn't really have luck finding female friends to hang out with. About this time, a friend suggested that I try Plenty of Fish. It's a dating site. I went online and created a profile, and after about a month of hardly any luck, I got a message from a girl.
Jessie 03.
She was close to my age, not bad-looking, sweet and outgoing, although you could tell she had been in a series of bad relationships and her issues. Now some might be bothered, but I'm rather open-minded, caring, and big-hearted. I'd handled women with issues like hers before, so I wasn't easily daunted. We spoke on the phone for a couple of weeks, then she wanted to meet. She didn't drive, so I had to meet her at her house. I was not nervous at all and rather enjoyed being around her. Her son apparently enjoyed using me as a jungle gym. After this time, we stayed in touch a little longer. Slowly, I'm starting to get a little on edge with her, as she's starting to show very clingy tendencies. A couple of times I've taken time away from class just to spend time with her, as I did enjoy being with her, but never again. Over the years, I've dealt with my fair share of psychos, but this one just raised the bar. I finally told her politely that this wasn't going to work out, that I had school to focus on, and that she should be focusing on her child and not so much on me. Big mistake. Later, I found her more than once showing up at my campus where I went to school. Knowing she didn't drive, I figured she had a friend drop her off. Now keep in mind, I'm a former security officer who worked bars, clubs, and concerts, so I'm pretty steel-nerved, but this wasn't the case. I had contacted my buddy who worked in PD and notified him that I was being stalked and needed his assistance. By the time he showed up, she had disappeared. After the last time I saw her, she started getting very possessive, showing signs of serious mental issues, threatening to commit awful things to herself if I don't come to see her, telling me how I'm just like all the other guys wanting her for one reason. Funny thing is, we didn't even bear fruit, so that statement was mute. She also kept telling me how she wanted to marry me, have my children, grow old with me, and that she could only see herself being with me. The final and most scariest thing for me was when she told me she knew where I lived, she knew where my parents lived, and would go after them. The worst thing was she sent me a text with my address, which I didn't give her. Now at this time, I called my cop buddy and told him what had happened and forwarded the messages I got from her. Normally, I would laugh off things of this nature, but since she started showing up at my school looking for me, I couldn't easily dismiss what my gut was telling me. My friend asked me if I knew who she was. I told him everything I knew about her and how she had been acting. He decided to call out an APB, all points bulletin for her and advise if seen to apprehend on site. Later on, I get notified they caught her on campus on a day I wasn't in class because I was homesick. Come to find out, the crazy broad had a blade on her and told the cops she was looking specifically for me, and that all she was going to make me pay for breaking her heart. Peace of mind knowing she wasn't out on the streets. Clarification: she was arrested for illegal possession of a weapon on school grounds, stalking, aggravated harassment, and criminal trespassing.
Some 8 or 9 years ago, when I was about 20 years old, I had been seeing this guy who treated me like garbage and never wanted to make it official. That is, until I found my now partner. I was really hung up and figured the best way to get over him was to find someone else to occupy my time, so I made a leap to online dating. Online dating at this time was not a picture and swiping. It was a sea of cringy bios and lists of likes and dislikes a mile long. Anyways, on one of these online dating stints I would go on every 6 months or so, I met this overly friendly guy who was very determined for a coffee date. I begrudgingly agreed and met him at a local SB, but I had made a friend of mine meet me there in an hour or two as backup. While this guy was a little short, he was kind of cute on the outside and resembled Andy Samberg. Think Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Lonely Island if you're old enough. He would stare at me without blinking for long periods of time and never took his eyes off me, like, at all. Anyways, he started calling me the Selena to his Justin within 15 minutes of meeting. So I got creeped, and luckily my friend showed up early, so I bailed. Fast. While I was walking away, this guy just stood there, watching as I sat with my friend to work on our project for university, and didn't move a muscle for almost half an hour, except to send me text after text, such as,
"See you later, baby.
and,
I'm so lucky to have found you."
When we finally left and I got to my car, I finally responded to his texts and shut him down as nicely as possible, but while being clear, I had no intention of ever seeing him again. Then, blocked him. Fast forward a week, and I'm walking out of my local dollar store, located in the same lot as the SB I met him at. When I see him standing by my car in the parking lot, praying he didn't see me, I booked it into the Walmart next door. crouched in the crowd. Well, this motherfucker must have seen me because I see him enter the Walmart, scanning avidly, and so I took my chance and ran back to my car like a track star. While leaving in the parking lot, stuck in a line of cars, this dude walks alongside my car just staring at me, while I was very frustrated by my non-tinted windows, waiting for me to look over. While finally pulling out of the lot, I see him in my rear view, still standing there, staring. Needless to say, I took a long break from online dating and deleted my account. After checking my blocked DMs, I had about 80 messages from this guy talking about a future together. Extremely concerned, this guy hung out in the shopping complex for a week waiting to see me. I avoided it as much as possible, for as long as possible. So to knock off Stalker Andy, let's not meet. Back in 2013, I was freshly single and new in town, so I made a profile on Plenty of Fish, a site and mobile app dating service. I used primarily for coffee dates, but after I started making friends, I got a little more comfortable with the idea of going out at night. I typically employed the buddy system and never had a problem with any weirdos in person. I had been talking to this guy, Dave, for about a week before we made our first plans to go out. I had invited a female coworker along, and he said that was
No problem.
he'd bring a friend also. However, at the last minute, he said his friend was feeling anxious and couldn't be persuaded to go. I assured him my coworker wasn't looking for a date, but he understandably, at the time, declined, as to not making things awkward for anyone. Without much thought, my coworker and I still went to the bar Dave had suggested. It was a popular place. Sue me. I chatted with Dave for a bit more through the app before I gave him my number. It seems harmless. Now that he had my number, I felt strange that we hadn't actually met, so I suggested a coffee date. He bailed on plans twice, but continued to text me all the time. I thought nothing strange of it yet. Then I started getting texts from him at all hours of the night. Whenever I called, he would reply with a text. It just started to give me a weird vibe. At worst, I thought maybe he was an unstable drug addict, so I gradually stopped chatting him as much. After all, there were other guys more able and willing to take me out, which is what I signed up for. He caught on that he was losing my interest, and asked rather boldly if I had met someone else. Not wanting to lead him on, I confirmed that I was playing the field and that I did not feel a connection with him anymore. With that sociopath, my approach wouldn't have mattered. He would have turned on me regardless. He called me a slut, said I was giving my time to the wrong guys, and accused me of only dating pretty boys. That was my aha moment. All his pictures on POF were of a really decent-looking guy who dressed well and clearly styled his hair. A pretty boy, yeah? I had been so quick to try and get out of the town that I had never asked for a Skype date or a picture for my contacts. Dave was catfishing me. I ignored his tantrum, because you can't really defend yourself against people like Dave. I stopped talking to him for a good that day, but he wasn't done with me. Every day he would text me as though we were still conversing normally, all one-sided things about new books he was reading or restaurants he was trying. After I realized he was not going to quit whatever you call this, I added his number to the block list, and thought that would be the end of it. Nope. A few months later, I start getting texts from a new number.
Hey, just junk. How are you? What's new? Are you still single?
Assuming this was a guy I may have ghosted off POF, a service I was no longer using, I tried to do the decent thing in reply. I said I wasn't dating at the moment and apologized if I had been rude or unclear about my intention.
No, it's Dave. It was pretty clear you don't want to talk to me anymore. So I'm just texting you from my friend's phone. It's just a few things I have to get off my chest. I need closure. Please.
Ugh, fine. Let this guy have his piece. He went on to admit he was not the guy in the pictures. Duh. He requested a do-over, as friends. No. Why not? I humor him with a well-thought and empathetic but decisive explanation. He lashes out again. Says I'm heartless and don't understand his plight. Ignore. Over the day or so, he continues texting me, apologizing for his behavior and then lashing out again when he doesn't get a reply. Eventually, he succumbs and ends with some lament that,
"We can't be friends?"
The texts stop for a while. Then one day, I'm driving on the freeway, and my phone starts going ham. I take a quick glance, but see that it's an unknown number. I was approaching my exit, almost at my destination, and figured it can wait. Before I got out of the car, I wanted to call my friends to touch base, see who was there or if I needed to grab us a table. But I figured the unknown number may be a friend texting from someone's phone. So I check my texts first.
"Just junk. Is that you in the silver Toyota Camry heading west on..." "Yeah, it is you. You look super pretty. Are you going to..." "Yeah, you are."
I was hoping it was a practical joke, but didn't want to take the chance. I call up the friend who lives the closest, and sure enough, she's already inside. The rest of the night goes off without a hitch, and I stay the night at her place to be safe. I get brave while I'm at her place and decided to text the number back. Who is this?
"Dave."
Now I was pissed. I called him, but as per usual, he didn't answer. I then proceeded to barrage him with novels of texts, telling him how wildly inappropriate he's being, threatened to call the cops, and demanded him to leave me alone. Once I had said all that I could, he congratulated me for clearing the slate and proposed that we be friends again. I tell him to fuck off, then nothing. The Dave days had spanned about a year. I blocked his number, his friend's number, and the new number he had texted me from while essentially stalking me. He never left me notes in my car or at my home, so I truly forgot about him, and never saw a need to change my number. It's now 2015, and guess who's turned up texting me again? Creepy POF Dave. I don't know who you are, and I do not care to know. Let's not meet. So I have used POF in the past. This one is by far the most weird I've gotten. I lived in an apartment with my friend Molly at the time. We lived on the 4th floor. Molly was on POF and constantly meeting people, and I was a recently single mom, so I was kind of hesitant on meeting people with a young child. I eventually joined POF myself. Some guy named Tyler messaged me and we started a conversation. Tyler and I talked about a lot of things. I said I had movies, and he asked if he can come by and hang out and watch one. I said okay, and asked that Molly stay home and my neighbor Jessie and her kids come over for movie night. Mine was in bed, and we all hung out. I don't like meeting people by myself. I've heard too many horror stories. Tyler comes up to my apartment, and I'm making popcorn for us and the kids. We were watching Nightmare Before Christmas. Tyler only stayed for maybe 10 minutes, and barely said anything at all. All I could say was, "Yeah, this is my house, my friends." I'm a big talker, but not when I'm nervous. Only because I say stupid stuff. So therefore, I don't talk at all. Molly and Jess pretty much made conversation instead. After that, I got text from Tyler saying how pretty I was, how we should hang out again. I always texted, "Yeah, sometimes." And that was it. My friends Molly and Jessie said he was a big no-no. I kept the conversation going until I bumped into an old friend. We stopped texting for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. I had hooked up with this old friend and forgot about Tyler. I started getting texts like,
"I can see that you're home. Want to hang out?"
I'd look out my balcony to see if there's a random car sitting around, but couldn't see anything. I started shutting my curtains and dressing in my bathroom. He then showed up at my door. Thank God I had a peephole. I pretended I wasn't home and just let my dog bark like crazy. He eventually left. I started getting other texts like,
"I want to touch you and make out with you like crazy. I bet you're a good kisser with all those rings."
I have 2 lip rings and a tongue ring. I started ignoring his texts and deleting them. I eventually deleted my POF profile because he kept spamming me with insane messages trying to woo me. It wasn't happening. I then got a message while I was playing a drinking card game with my roommate and friends. It said,
I know you're ignoring my texts. I can see you put your phone down when I text, and it says you've read it also.
I then realized I had the read receipts activated on my iPhone, so I shut them off. I then also found out you could block a number too. I was getting up to 15 missed calls a day by him, voicemails, and more texts. My Facebook is set up so you can't see anything unless you're my friend, so thank God for that feature. Fast forward a year later, Molly and I no longer live together. Molly messaged me on Facebook while I was at work, saying that someone named Tyler messaged her asking if she was the Molly who lived with me. She answered them asking why, and this person said that they missed me and were wondering where I went and asked me if I wanted to meet up. They also messaged her asking if I still worked at the specific taxi office. I never told him which one. There are at least 5 different ones in my city. I never told this person that information, nor were they able to get it. Where I work, we fake our names unless it's OPP related. We also pretend we don't know about the person you're talking about. We're very private at my work. She said she keeps getting messages at least 10 to 15 times a day asking about me, telling her that my son is a cutie and stuff. He's never met or seen my son, by the way. I told her just to tell him I either moved out of province or that I died. She told him that I died a tragic death. I think he got it, though. I haven't heard anything since. I don't live there anymore or in the same city, nor do I speak to those friends anymore. Tyler, please, let's not meet again. That would be great. Thanks. Okay, so I've never posted on here before, but I always read and I love to comment on people's stories. Unfortunately, I quite recently had a very scary, more like terrifying encounter. For some background information, I live in a small apartment complex right outside my campus with some friends. I am also a 20-year-old girl. So, all my friends were always bashing on me for never meeting up with any boys or going. I had gotten sick of it. I didn't want to be the little friend who stayed home and eat pizza while my friends were out on dates with boys. So, I signed up for Plenty of Fish. Now, I'm not the type of person who would say yes to any random stranger. They had to be nice looking. They had to have plenty of photos of themselves. And we both had to have at least 2 common interests. So, with those rules in my head, I psyched myself up to join the world of online dating. Within a few days, I already had 2 boys I was talking to. One said he was a doctor, kind of hard to believe because he was 20, and one said he worked as a construction guy, easier to believe. I didn't like that the doctor guy was lying to me, but one day I was getting crap from my roommates. The construction guy, who we can call Dan, messaged me on a messaging app we were using and asked if I wanted to go out for a bite to eat. I told my roommates where I was going and who I was with. You know, all the things someone should do so someone knows if you've been abducted. I even had a check-in time, so that when my roommate texted me if things were good, I had to say some silly code word that meant things were good. If I responded another code word, it meant, help me get out of this. And if I didn't use code words, then she would call the police for help. So, I quickly dolled myself up and got ready for my date. I put my hair in a classy bun, leaving strips of it hanging down around my glasses. I put on a nice white blouse and some black pants, and I was ready to go. I jumped in my car and headed out to the restaurant where Dan had chosen. It was just out of my town, but it was only still a 15-minute drive from my apartment. I arrived at the restaurant and saw him almost immediately. He was wearing a nice clothes and looked just like his photos. He was waiting just outside the restaurant doors for me. His eyes lit up when they saw me. He walked over to me and smiled. We chatted a little bit outside, since it was summer and not cold, and then walked inside. We ate dinner and talked about our life and things like school and how it was going. I got the text from my friend, but since everything was all good, I sent that code word back. Dan talked about how much he liked his job and things, and altogether, it was pretty nice. Except for one thing, Dan was boring. He didn't do anything exciting or really talk enthusiastic about anything, and it was boring. It was an average date, and I honestly didn't care to go on any more. The next day I woke up to the feeling of my phone vibrating nonstop. I looked at it and realized it was vibrating so much that it had fallen off my dresser. I almost laughed. Then I saw all the messages were from Dan. At first, they were all saying how much fun he had, and that he would really like to go out again. But then the messages took a turn. They got violent and angry that I wasn't responding. It was 7 in the freaking morning. I was sleeping. I noped out of that situation. I texted him back and said that I had been sleeping, and that no, I was not going on any more dates with him. I was just about to block his profile on both sites when I got the final message.
Watch your back.
At first I was really creeped out, but then I thought that since I had him blocked and all my accounts were deleted, he could do nothing. Wrong. Later that day I saw a text from a random number, telling me how pretty I looked in my blue PJs. I glanced outside just in time to see none other than Dan running down the road. How the hell did he get my number? I thought wearily. I blocked that number and continued what I was doing. Later that night, I fell asleep pretty early and woke up to my phone text alert going crazy. It was from the number that I had just blocked earlier that day. There were dozens of messages saying how I was going to get it. I quickly showed all my roommates the messages. They all told me that I should go to the police, but since I was stupid, I didn't. I blocked the number again and went back to sleep, but once again I woke up to my phone buzzing. I didn't wait. I jumped in my car and drove all the way down to the police station. Once there, they told me that they couldn't do much to help me, and just told me to block the number. I did. At least I had it on record. Nothing happened for a few days. The number stayed blocked on my phone for a while. But then the pictures started. They were pictures of my house, of me in my house, my car, my work. I went back to the police and finally I was able to get a restraining order against Dan. I never received any messages from Dan again after that. And now I never use dating websites. So Dan, let's hope we never meet again. If anyone has any tips on staying safer, please let me know. I am generally pretty cautious when it comes to online dating. Chat until comfortable, meet in public, and have friends knowledgeable of my whereabouts for the first meet just in case. All that jazz. The dates are usually pretty fun, or duds, but I've never had an issue and never been fearful. I have in fact made some really great friends. Others I just don't hear from again. No harm. No fuss. Simple. Recently I met a guy online through POF. Talked quite a bit through the app, and then often for hours on the phone. Seemed like a great dude, so we decided to meet. He lives about 45 minutes away, a town I do not visit often at all, so I'm unfamiliar with. And there was talk about my staying there if we decided to grab drinks. I thought maybe I'd just get a room for myself, as to not stay at his place off the bat. I don't know why, but a lot of my usual good judgment just kind of flew out the window at some point, because we left my car near a park. Had no idea how to get back to it from his place, if I needed, because he took so many twists and turns on the drive there, while I was in the back. Oh yeah, he suggested I crawl in the back of his van because it's a small town, and he doesn't want anyone to see me. Why didn't I just turn around and walk back to my car? He also took my phone to lock in a box to hide its location. I know. Should have been a red flag number 2, I realize that. Like I said, I don't know what I was thinking at the time. I thought based on all our conversations that this may be part of a silly, what he thought would be fun sort of game. He even kind of presented it as such when I talked to him before I left town. We finally arrived at his home and hung out, watched movies, talked pretty normal, had some dinner. At some point he begins kind of acting off, asking a lot of questions in a kind of intimidating tone, making me feel a little dumb, dissecting everything I'd say, constantly pacing, chain smoking. He was intense overall. I began to feel a little uncomfortable, even mentioned/suggested he drive me back to my car, and we call it a night so I can go home, since there was never a guarantee I was staying. He refused, thought I was joking, said if I wanted to leave I could call a cab. I could not afford to allow the meter to run while I try to figure out where to tell the driver to find my car. At this point, I do have my phone back and had a message to friend to keep kind of on hand in case of a 911 come get me situation. I'd know how to get to my car from a certain point if she could get me. Things settled though, we felt a bit more comfortable. Okay, well, I just want to sleep now, get the night over with, and get back to my car in the morning. That's what eventually happens. I make it home safe. Even after that, we keep talking at least, phone calls and texts. We both agreed it was intense and awkward. He apologized, so we tried to hang out again. It was actually loads better. I felt comfortable, lots of laughs. It was good actually. I willingly stayed the night this time rather than feeling trapped. He offered to grab my pillow from my bag for me when he did go to the other room. When he did, my makeup bag had fallen out. This is actually relevant. And he returned it to its place and let me know. Okay. Fell asleep talking. He drove me to my car the next morning. We didn't talk much the rest of the day. I was pretty busy doing bridesmaid things and such. Well, he texted me in the evening, and I told him I'd call him later if he'd like, as I was busy. Didn't get a response, so I texted him when I was free to see if he was awake and still wanted to chat. This was around 2 a.m., not an abnormal time for us at all, but also didn't want to call him and wake him up. This is where he goes off on me. Ask me what the hell kind of script I have prepared for him and what I actually want from him. Okay, what script? I tell him that. As we already discussed / agreed upon, I'd like to start as friends while we get to know each other. He then tells me I'm a stupid out-of-towner toting around a makeup bag as a facade and some kind of smokescreen. Said it was sloppy of me, and the fact that I said I'd call later was some kind of red flag, though he knew I had things to do. All I kept thinking was, what? I didn't save those texts. He told me just to not text him again. I took that as an opportunity to just lose all contact, and at this point I was fine with parting ways because he was saying some nasty stuff. Therefore, I deleted everything. It was just easy for me to just leave it all behind. A week later, though, I got a voicemail demanding I call right away. I was at work and my building had bad reception, and I saw no missed call notification. Just a new voicemail, so I had no idea who left it. Went back to listen again an hour later so I could check the number that had left it, and the message was gone. I know it's saved. Even checked erased messages. Not there. Well, I assume it was him because the same thing happened with a message he left the following night. He said some heinous things. Just awful. So far, that's the last I've heard as of Sunday morning. Thankfully, he knows a little personal info of mine. He doesn't know where I live. This kind of thing has never happened to me before. Not sure how to respond. I'm just hoping it doesn't escalate any further. If you would like to submit your stories, please check out the Panic Within subreddit. I go over those stories that are submitted, and I go ahead and I narrate them. I say go over, but I narrate all of them. So if you are interested in something like that, go ahead and take a look in the description, and you'll find the link there. We also have a Discord. You can come and hang out and get spooky with me and other narrators. We post new content, up-and-coming videos, promotions, and we also just hang out and chat, and you can come and hang out with us there. If you're interested in that, link is also in the description below. And last but not least, if you are interested in doing a collab with the King of Panic or myself, you can absolutely reach out. If you're another creator, you can do one on our channel, we can do one with you. We are completely open for collab as of right now. Looking for new stuff to do and very excited for anybody who reaches out. The best way to do that is through Twitter or Discord. I do check Instagram and I will get back. It just might take a little longer because I'm super bad at that, but I've been trying to be better. So if you do reach out there, even if it takes a couple days, I'll be there. But like I said, we're excited, so please definitely reach out and we're looking forward to it. And as always, thank you for visiting the Panic Room. You have successfully made it to the next portion of your tour.
Please stay tuned for your next prompt. Click the like button and subscribe to receive notifications for when the next portion of your tour is ready to join. Thank you for watching. Don't let the panic drown you.